Hi, and welcome to Art with Mrs. Torres. This week, we are studying dolphins because April 14th is National Dolphin Day. I love dolphins because they are such sweet animals. They are not predatory, they are kind, and there are many stories of dolphins actually helping humans. If you have ever been at the ocean and seen some dolphins swimming together, that's called a group or a pod of dolphins. Another thing that you might not know about dolphins is that an orca whale is actually a dolphin. I didn't know that. I thought it was a whale, but an orca whale is a large dolphin. So today I'm going to teach you some more facts as we draw about our beautiful dolphin friends. Well, let's begin our lesson. We are going to be using just any kind of paper that you have around the house, a pencil, an eraser, and I am going to be using colored pencils. I'm going to be using a black colored pencil for outlining my drawing. However, you could also use a Sharpie marker and crayons. That would work great, or markers, whatever you've got around the house. Let's begin our lesson. So I'm going to have you pause the video, gather up those items, and then meet me back here when you're ready. Welcome back. I've got all my things I'm going to need for my drawing lesson today. I'm going to show you a picture of the dolphin before we begin. So the first thing I want you to notice is that when the dolphin is jumping out of the water, his body makes this beautiful curve. His body shape kind of reminds me of a banana. And so when you see this shape, that's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking of a gray banana, and that's going to help me when I'm designing the shape of my dolphin. I'm going to be drawing my dolphin a little bit larger on the middle of the picture, but you could make your dolphin coming from the edge of the paper as well. So the first thing I'm going to do is start by making a very light curve. And when thinking about the shape of him, he's kind of like I mentioned earlier, like a banana. So I'm going to round the front here. And then I'm going to make another curve underneath and connect it a little bit more pointed at the bottom. So rounded here, rounded underneath, and then a little bit more pointed at the bottom. So if you need to erase, you can grab your eraser, pause the video at any time. Now, the next thing we're going to be doing is adding the front, his nose. So if you notice, his nose in the photograph is rounded, and it kind of comes out and rounds around and comes back. It's pointed almost like a beak, but a little bit more rounded. So I'm just going to make kind of like a sideways letter U right here. And then I'm going to bring his mouth right from the tip all the way back, and I'm going to just give him a slight curve, because if you've ever seen dolphins, photographs of dolphins, they look like they're smiling. Now I'm going to erase this portion here with my eraser. And I'm going to add a slight wrinkle here just by taking my pencil and making two little marks there, because if you notice, he's got kind of this little wedge right there by his eye. Speaking of his eye is all the way back on his head. It's not toward the front, and it's lined up with that little wedge mark. So we're going to come back here, and we're going to add just a little curve for his cheek, and I'm going to make a nice round eye here. I'm going to give him a little highlight in his eye, and a little mark right here for his top of his eye. So from this corner of his mouth, I'm going to extend a line that goes from his mouth all the way back to the tip of the base of his body. Now we'll be erasing a portion of that later when we add his fin, but this way we can draw the top of his body in a gray and leave the bottom of his body more white. So here at the bottom of his mouth, I'm going to round the bottom part of his lip just a tiny bit more so that you can see this top of his mouth and the bottom of his mouth. Next, I'm going to come up here So here is his eye, and I'm going to start to draw his big dorsal fin on the back of his body right here. So the dorsal fin curves back. It loops slightly, and then it curves back in and down. Kind of looks like a shark fin. Now, the next part of his body is going to be his front fins. These are called his pectoral fins. I'm going to go right here, a little bit back from his mouth, and I'm going to make a swooping curve. I'm going to round it and then bring it back. So it's wider here at the base where it's connected to his body and more narrow at the tip. And then I'm going to come in and erase those two lines. I keep my hand like this when I'm erasing so my paper doesn't wrinkle. For those of you that have drawn with me before, you know I call this the duck's mouth. You erase inside the duck's mouth, then your paper doesn't wrinkle. And then I'm going to add a second fin behind him. So I'm just going to go right here. I'm going to copy what I did here, but because it's behind, it's going to be a little bit shorter. So I'm going to go back, loop it around, and bring it back again. So the next part of his body we're going to draw is his tail fin. And his tail is what helps propel him through the water. So the first thing I'm going to do is come right to the back and go a little bit up from the tip. And I'm going to draw a curved line here. And then I'm going to continue it on this side. So kind of like you're drawing a rainbow. And then I'm going to find where the point of the body is. I'm going to skip a small space and make a little dot. And then I'm going to make a slight curve. And when I get down to this tip, I'm just going to start to curve it back in again. I'm going to do the same thing on this side, a slight curve, and then I'm going to swoop it back in again. So it's like a little bit of a wavy line. So now that I have drawn the dolphin, we have one more part that's important, and that is called his blowhole. So the blowhole is where he breathes, and it's up at the top of his head. So right here above his eye, I'm just going to make a very small little smile, and later we'll fill that in when we're coloring. So our final part of our dolphin is to now make some splashes of water around him. So what I do is I'm going to come down here to the bottom, and if the dolphin is jumping out of the water, the white cap of the water, meaning the white splashes of the water, are traveling with him. So he's jumping out of the water and you can see all the splashes around his tail. So what we want to do is kind of give the illusion of water splashing. And the way that I do that is I just basically make a wavy line that looks kind of like fingers from the bottom corner of my paper. I'm also going to do one behind his tail, and then I'll do some small ones up in the air. Yes, I like to always have a couple extra pieces of paper underneath, or maybe a cushioned paper underneath when I'm coloring. That way I don't pick up on any surfaces underneath my desk. So like I have this wooden desk here, and I don't want to have this hard line get onto my dolphin as I'm coloring. So make sure that you have some paper underneath, like a little stack of paper or stack of magazines. And that's going to help your surface be a little smoother when we go to color. All right, moving on to now our water splashes. So I'm just going to take my pencil and I'm going to make kind of like some fingers coming up from the bottom. So you can see how I did this. I just kind of took my pencil and I went in and out, in and out. You want to make them different lengths. And definitely make one behind the tail. So I've got this one coming out from behind the tail. And then I'm going to bring it around and maybe down a little lower. And maybe make a big one over here. So he's going to kind of look like he's splashing out of the corner of the paper. Once we add some color to this, it's going to look really wonderful. And then I'm going to make a big one up here behind his tail too. So I'm just going to come over here and extend another one. Now, the next thing we're going to add are a few more splashes around him, and these are going to look more like little water droplets. So you want them to all be headed that direction. So all of my points on my drops are going to be pointing this way. So I'm going to go like this and make, so all my skinny parts of my water droplets are always going to be facing this direction, this way. And then you can just make a few little splashes with circles too. Later, we'll go in with this with our colored pencils and or your crayons or your Sharpie marker. It's going to just really help it pop. All right, let's begin now for our outlining. So for my outlining, you could use a black Sharpie marker, but I really like to work with a black colored pencil when I'm doing my outlining, because you can go in and erase also if you make a mistake. So I'm just using just a regular colored pencil, and I'm going to start now to trace over my lines. So you can see right away as I am tracing over the line that the black outline is darker than the black of the colored pencil. So I'm going to retrace all of my lines, and I want you to do the same. Now, really make sure that you erase this line really well that used to be in the body, because we don't want to outline that. So I'm going to go ahead and trace all my outline, and I want you to do the same, and then meet me back here when you have everything outlined, including the water drops, okay? Okay, I have everything outlined now, and I'm going to go in now with my black colored pencil, and I'm going to start shading a few areas with the same colored pencil that I used before. Now, if you used a Sharpie marker, you could start shading with a black crayon, or just your regular number 2 pencil would also work. So you could use your pencil for shading like this, or you can use your colored pencil, or you could use a black or gray crayon. So we're going to begin with shading, and then we're going to color everything in just a minute using my colored pencil. So first thing I want to shade is this back fin. Do you notice how his back fin is darker? So I'm just going to go in with my black colored pencil and give it a little bit of a shadow on that back fin. And I'm not coloring really hard, but I'm just giving it a shadow. So it's a little bit darker. I'm also going to shade a little space here and here. So I'm kind of curving it. And then while I have my pencil, I'm going to go in and darken his eye. So let me zoom in so you can see his eye. I'm going to add a small curve right there to the bottom. And then I'm going to color in his pupil, leaving that little highlight. I'm going to shade just a little bit right here in front of his eye. You can see he has that shadow right there. So I'm just very softly brushing my pencil right here. I'm going to zoom out so you can see the rest of him. Don't forget to shade in his blowhole where he breathes. And then we're going to put some shadow now on that fin on the back, his dorsal fin. So I'm just going to go like this. And as I'm shading this, you'll notice I'm going to leave the top a little lighter, like the light is hitting it. And you'll notice in this photograph that the back of his body is darker and he's lighter right up here where the light is catching him. So I'm going to do the same thing using my colored pencil. I'm just going to shade the back of him a little darker. And I'm keeping all of my lines following the curve of his body. So I don't want to color this way. I want to follow the curve of his body. And I'm just using this to shade. I'm even going to shade down here. I'm going to make this part of his body a little more light or white later, but I still want to shade it a little darker on the underside. Do you see the contrast between the colored pencil up here and the white down here? I'm going to add just a little bit underneath, but I don't want to make it really dark. So I'm just going to do it really soft. And I want there to be contrast between the two. So I'm going to press a little harder now. So contrast. This is a little lighter. This is a little darker. Now from here, we're going to draw a horizon line. So if you look here, you can see the horizon line really clearly between the water and the sky. Now, you have two ways to do this. You can choose where you want the horizon line. I would like to make my horizon line a little bit below the splash line, but you could draw your horizon line all the way up to here and just have a little bit of sky and a lot of ocean. But I kind of want him to really look like he's jumping farther out of the ocean. So I'm going to bring my horizon line a little bit lower than the actual photograph. So if you look at the photograph here, he is way up here and the horizon line is here, but his tail is almost above. So I'm going to be doing mine just a little bit different. I'm going to do mine from the tail here and bring it straight across. So I'm just lightly sketching it. You could also pause the video and go grab a ruler or the edge of another piece of paper. So you could take your paper like this and then line it up straight to get a straight line, but I'm just going to sketch it. Do my best to make it fairly straight. So now everything from here down is going to be my ocean and everything from here up is going to be my sky. So now I'm ready to move on to a new color. So I'm going to put my black colored pencil aside. I'm going to look for gray. Do you have a gray colored pencil in your box or a gray crayon? Because gray is different than black. It's going to have a different tint to it. So as I use my gray over my black, it's going to add a richness. So I'm going to only do it right here so you can see the difference when I lay the gray over the black. You can see how those two colors together make it so much more rich. Now look at the difference between this and this area right here. Now watch when I take this in and I brush my gray over the fin, leaving just a little pocket of light right up at the top. I'm going to make his underbelly a little bit lighter than the top. Not bright white though. I'm going to make his fins gray. And then I'm going to brush it all the way across his head, leaving just a little highlight up at the top. So now up at the top here, I'm just going to very softly outline the very top of his head so he doesn't look like he has such a dark black outline. And put a little bit around his blowhole. Now I'm going to take my gray and I'm going to run a little bit of gray at the back of my water. So I'm just going to run it right at the back here because I want the tip of all of the ocean spray to be white. But the back, I'm just going to shade using my gray colored pencil while I have it in my hands. We want some contrast. That's another time I'm using contrast between this wave in the front and this wave in the back. So I'm going to make this wave in the back a little bit darker. And this one in the front will show up more because of the contrast. All right, let's move on to another color. So now we want to look for something that's light blue in your crayon box or colored pencil box. I've got a couple different light blues here. So choose whichever one you like. And I'm going to use this now, and I'm going to add a hint of blue so that you can see the dolphin it's not a flat gray. There's actually a little bit of blue in his skin. So I'm going to go in now and brush a light coat of blue, light blue, by the way, not dark blue, light blue, all over the gray. So everywhere I put gray, I'm just going to put a hint of this blue in. It's just going to make your color so much more rich. It's going to help your gray not look so flat. Okay, moving on. Now we're going to take this light blue and we're going to start to build up our water. So first color, light blue, we're going to put it along the horizon line and we're going to press a little bit harder at the back and we're going to bring it lighter toward the front. Pressing it a little bit harder along the back. Let me first trace my line. And I'm going to make sure all of the time that I'm using my colored pencils, especially in the ocean, I'm only going horizontally, left to right. Pressing a little bit harder. I kind of hold my colored pencil on an angle so I get to use the entire tip, not the point, but kind of the side of the front of the colored pencil. And I'm going to brush it a little harder at the back and then slowly bring it forward. So it gets just a little bit lighter as it comes forward. So once I've done that, I'm going to go around and take my colored pencil and trace around all of my water drops, my splashes. So I definitely want to go in here and use the same color that I did here, going the same direction this way. And then we're going to take our blue and we're going to go over the gray. So we're going to scribble and you're going toward whichever direction the spray is going. So my spray is going this way. And then I'm going to let it get lighter and lighter as it gets toward the end because I want to keep it white at the end. All right, when I'm done with this shade of blue, I'm going to move on to a little bit darker shade of blue. So I have a turquoise blue here and I have a regular blue. So you could choose, you could do both just to add another layer. You don't have to, but you can. But I'm going to use this turquoise for sure in here. Now, if you don't have turquoise or you don't have a sky blue, this is actually a turquoise. If you don't have these colors, you could just go in with a regular green. So any kind of green, and you can brush this over your blue and you'll get a really pretty turquoise in the water. You can use those. So I'm going to do it a little harder in the back and bring it forward a little lighter. So if you see the ocean, it's really not just straight blue. There's a lot of green and turquoise in it. And that's a really great contrast to the blue of the sky if you decide to make your sky blue. I can't forget, I got to do it under here as well to make it match what I did in the front. And now I'm going to go in and add some turquoise to my water spray. I can see right here, I forgot to put my sky blue in there or my light blue, so I can add that in just a minute. You want to make it darker at the back, lighter as it goes forward. Same thing we did before. So when you're all finished with this, now you can move on to an even darker shade of blue if you want to, and you can put that final shade in your ocean. And you want to have some contrast, remember, so make sure that it's darker behind your water spray and darker at the bottom. Gently going over this darker color at the base of those sprays. Now see this one right here in the background? I'm going to make this a little darker. Right around the edge. So I hope you had fun today. I had fun teaching you a little bit about dolphins and also how to draw a dolphin for our celebration of National Dolphin Day. I would love to see a picture of your dolphin that you drew. So send me an email to rtorres@lcusd.net. And that way I get to see your work. I would love to see your work. Hope you have a great day. Bye-bye.